Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. We have made it to the magic number of 100, episode 100 in 11 months. Wow, what a freaking crazy time it's been. And to add on to the magic of number 100, I have here today Vinny Grosso. He is an author, speaker, entertainer. He has a brand new show downtown Vegas called Totally Mental. He's appeared on America's Got Talent, Penn Teller, Fool Us. And he's actually fooled Penn Teller twice. So actually pretty good accolade. So thank you for coming on, Vinny.
Thanks for having me.
How does it feel to be downtown right now? Your show's down here. You're becoming a little bit more familiar with the area.
Yeah, no, I've always loved downtown, you know, the arts district down here and just in general. We, before even moving out here, I moved out here like 7 years ago, but the Society of American Magicians, I was president of that organization, and we had our convention at the Golden Nugget. Golden Nugget.
It's early.
Yeah.
The coffee's flowing.
Well, and this is the first time I've had a latte ever. So
that blows my mind.
Yeah. So we had our convention at the Golden Nugget several times. So back in 2012, I kind of got really familiar with downtown, and I love it. I really do.
I really feel like the attention is now flowing to downtown. I've had multiple people on here, Jonathan Jossel of the Plaza and Scott Robin of Vital Vegas. And it seems like a lot of locals are mainly transplanting to downtown, but also a lot of the tourists are starting to focus on downtown. So I think the move to the Neonopolis is actually very well for you. It's going to be a good decision.
I hope so. And the venue is just beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. So it's part of that. You know, downtown, there's basically two versions of downtown. You know, you have some, you know, the new stuff is phenomenal, you know, beautiful and artistic and all of that, eclectic. And then you have some relics that, and this is definitely, while it is in a building that you would look at it and you'd be like, oh, okay, so that's part of that one era. But then when you go into it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. It's phenomenal.
That's what downtown is starting to do. Even in the art district, they want to keep the integrity of the old buildings to make it feel like it's downtown. But once you go in, it's completely gutted, and it's been just something that's super innovative. And
I think Circa did a really nice job of that.
First building in like 30 years that's been done.
But it has that classic Vegas feel to it, but it's modernized. And, you know, like even when you go inside, there's, you know, Vegas Vicky in there and whatnot. So it's great. Is
this your first show downtown, or were you?
Yeah.
Where was your previous residencies?
At my house.
Okay.
I was working a cruise ship when COVID hit. I was on a cruise ship, and that was interesting. That was it wasn't a horror story. The horror story was that I was no longer working there. But the cruises were fantastic.
So you've been a traveling magician for the majority of your career, I guess. Yeah. Even appearing on TV multiple times also makes you a nomad of a sort.
Sure, but before even doing the cruise ships, I worked mostly as a tour manager, not even performing all the time. So it's, you know, I really said I got to just focus purely on my performing career a couple years ago, and that's what brought me here. So were you always interested in being an illusionist or a magician, or is this something that just built gradually over time? Oh yeah, no. I mean, when I was 12, I got seriously into it, and I started doing shows for fees at like 14. My sister would drive me to the birthday party or, you know, whatever it is. And I'm from upstate New York, like 2 hours north of the city. And I would spend my summers performing in the Catskills, at the resorts in the Catskills. So that was great. I mean, I had that kind of career. People, I'm jumping around here, but when people saw my America's Got Talent appearance, the interview that they gave ahead of time, they're like, you're in the blind business, and, you know, and you were married or something like that, because I've been divorced for so long that people didn't even know that. But that actually is what kind of took my magic career on the back burner, for lack of a better term, because my ex-wife had 2 children from a previous marriage, and they were 9 and 12. So I was just purely focused on getting them through school and that.
Life got in the way a little bit. Tends to happen. Tends to happen, but that's completely okay. And then you vanished from that and made your way into this space. When you were on, I think it was America's Got Talent, you mentioned that you were in the window cleaning business or some sort.
Window coverings.
Window coverings. Was that an actual title?
No. So I worked for a subsidiary of the largest window covering company in the world. And I worked there from like 99 to 2006. And then I started my own business in the window covering industry and had been a consultant. And I mean, I still have a client that calls me up and asks me for advice and stuff. And I'm just, but my degree is in mechanical engineering. So I was a product engineer and product manager. So in product development and that kind of stuff. So I have patents for window coverings and
wow.
Yeah,
Isn't it strange the journey of life? The majority of people I've had on here have a degree from college that has nothing to do with what they're doing now. And that's and me included. I went to UNLV and got a degree in kinesiology. Which
I don't even know what that is.
It's the study of human movement. So it's just like health science. I was unsure what I wanted to do coming out of high school. So I was like, I might as well just major in myself, I guess. Like I'm going to take my body with me the rest of my life, so hopefully.
If this table were human, you could describe why it's moving so much, but not right.
Yeah, it has some loose ligaments. Right? Yeah, the tangential rotation is.
My degree was mechanical engineering, but I made it work with what I was doing. Like my senior design project was a levitation. So classmates of mine were doing. I didn't even understand the title of their project, for senior design. It was like the thermal, this, that, I was lost. And I came out, I had a fog machine going, and I had a girl come dancing out, and then she laid down on a park bench, and then I floated her up in the air, and that was my senior design project.
You were foreshadowing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right? That's almost a meta illusion within itself.
A little bit, yeah. And I'm working with a group of seniors I went to Villanova, and I'm still close with the university and the engineering department, and I'm working right now with a group of seniors, and their design project is another magic trick that I've been trying to get developed and working on. So we're in the second semester of it. So the design is kind of done, and now we're up to prototyping and building it. So, yeah. So I've always kept, even though, it's engineering, what does that have to do with, magic or stuff? But I'm constantly building.
Still, would you say you still have a passion for it?
I like designing and figuring out ways to make things work. And I think that's very similar with magic. You have to, that same kind of creative skill applies.
Yeah, I guess if you're gonna fool Penn and Teller, you have to create a little bit of an architecture that's surrounding it.
Yeah, or in my case, just get lucky. So I think with Penn and Teller fool us, there are I think 3 ways you fool Penn and Teller. One is you kind of skirt the rules a little bit, kind of thing, which is, I'm not crazy about the people that end up fooling them that way, and I don't think they are either, but I'll let them speak for themselves. Or you can get incredibly lucky because they just basically guess incorrectly. It isn't like they didn't know what I was doing. They thought I was doing something different, so, and that's what happened with me. And then there are very few people that I think just flat out fool them, where it's like, I just don't have any idea. I am not in that category.
Well, it obviously helped your career, right?
Incredibly. Yeah.
Would you say it was Penn and Teller more, or America's Got Talent, which gave you more exposure?
Not even close. Penn and Teller. It's just, after the Penn and Teller thing, I was able to do a lecture tour for magicians that I would have never been able to do. People, when they talk to me after shows or anything like that, it's always about the Penn and Teller appearances. It's never about America's Got Talent.
Wow.
Yeah.
You'd think America's Got Talent's bigger too, has a wider audience, but maybe because Penn and Teller is a little bit more specific.
Yeah, I also think too, in fairness to America's Got Talent with it. So I appeared and I got 4 yes votes, but then I never appeared again. So if they had me on, multiple times and further along, I think it would be a different story. But they clearly saw the Penn and Teller piece, where the first one that I did, where I got naked on stage, and I think that was appealing to them, and they wanted it, and I did that. And this is also going back to, like I said, I wasn't, I've been performing all my life, but I wasn't full on performing at that point. So, I believe it was a decision that, maybe they didn't think the material that I had beyond that was going to be strong enough to keep going. So even though that segment did really well, that was it. So,
were you actually naked on stage?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, a question. I watched the segment on YouTube, and that's when Penn and Teller go up there, and I was like, I wonder if he's actually naked behind it.
Yeah, no. I mean, especially so. I mean, I was inspired by Penn and Teller for that trick. One of the first time, well, not one of the first time I ever saw Penn and Teller perform. They were touring, and I was in upstate New York, and they were there. They ended the show with this routine where they said, magicians hide stuff on them, if they're going to produce like a bird, the bird is like, it's got to be on them somewhere, kind of thing. It's not real magic. It's spoiler alert, kind of thing. So each of them stood behind kind of like the little, like 3-panel, privacy kind of.
Oh yeah.
So they stood behind that, but you could see their head, and they each had a volunteer from the audience up with them behind them. So they stripped down naked behind that, and you see the reaction from the volunteers from the audience. They're like, "Oh my gosh, they're really naked." And then they put on a T-shirt. They each put on a T-shirt that clearly had nothing in it, that was just long enough for them to be able to step away from the little curtain thing. And then they went on and produced item after item, and then they ended up producing blood all over the place, and they ended up just covered in blood. And then they'd walk out into the lobby, and you could say hello to them in the lobby, and they're in T-shirts covered in blood. And so that's what gave me the idea of doing the naked thing, because I was going to be on their show and trying to film. So, and then I just tried, how could I make it work within the context of the trick that I was trying to do.
Smart. You want to be relatable to them if they're the host. You want to bring back some nostalgia. Nostalgia sells. That's what Gary Vee always says.
Yeah. And the lead consultant for Penn and Teller, he has passed away, but he's a hero to every magician. This guy, Johnny Thompson. And when I was going over it with Johnny, because I was friends with Johnny, we were at another friend's house, and I was talking to him about it. He goes, that was the first trick I consulted on Penn and Teller with. So that made me feel really, really great that, this guy who's my idol is, the first trick that he ever consulted on Penn and Teller is the one that I'm referencing or alluding to, with it. So it's a special routine for me.
Why do you think it is that audience members love magic so much, or an illusionist? Like, I can't understand what the fascination is, because the majority of people who are in the audience, we know it's not actual magic.
Sure.
But it's like, maybe it's the fact that you're being tricked, which keeps people dubious to what's happening in front of them.
I think there are 2 types of people, or 2 ways to watch a magic show, and both of them are appealing. So there's a group of people that want to just escape into a fantasy world. So they go and they just watch it, and they know it's not real, but they accept it as this kind of alter reality escape and entertainment and enjoyment. And that's great. And then the other group of people are the people that want to figure things out. So you're essentially presenting a puzzle, and people want to try and figure out the puzzle. And, if just like any puzzle, if you think you figured it out, you feel incredibly satisfied. And if a puzzle is challenging, there's value in that. And it's like, wow, this is really difficult or tough, or, and you can have an appreciation of it. So
you have both of those ideas in mind when you're creating a show?
Oh, absolutely.
For those two different audiences.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to create a routine that is the story is nice. So if someone is just accepting it and watching it, should be a lovely story and routine that plays out. But then the magic part of it, you have to make sure is really freaking good, because the people that are trying to figure things out, you want them to be like, I give up. That was great.
In some of your new routines, do you leverage some of the new growing technologies? And the reason why I ask this is because magic has been around for decades, if not centuries. Mm-hmm. So you think some of the like traditional methods or components to it would kind of go stale over time?
Stale. I wouldn't use the word stale, but it's a great question. There are definite. Technology is progressing like it's exponentially. Moore's law. It's just unbelievable right now, and that technology is allowing people to do effects or tricks that, before this technology was available, it required an awful lot more and an awful lot more skill. So the negative part of that is it's opening up some effects to maybe people that might not have earned it. I always use the example of David Copperfield, who I love. He's fantastic. And people, when I was younger and even now, they say, oh, well, if I had Copperfield's budget, I could do that show. And I'm like, no, you couldn't. There's a reason why he got to that point of success and then has that, financial means to pull off these other things that if you just had the financial means and you didn't do all the work it took to get there, you still couldn't do it. It isn't about that. So I think it's kind of similar with technology of being able to do a particular trick that maybe you didn't develop some of the skills. And I think if in some cases I'm one of those people. I don't consider myself a great technician in magic. But the negative to that is, I think some people get too caught up on the effect and not necessarily the routine. And when it becomes just the effect, like I have cousins in Italy and I visit them frequently, not currently, but I used to. And my Italian is not very good. I can express myself and I can understand a little bit of what's going on, but I don't think I've conjugated a verb correctly in my life or, anything like that. So when I perform there, it's not about the routine, it's about the trick, and it just becomes puzzles. And that's not my strength. My strength is kind of that whole routine and talking, around it. So, I think that I know I'm going all over the place here.
I encourage tangents. Yeah. I love tangents.
Yeah, but the technology is. I wish it was almost in magic. I wish it was almost like you needed a license in order to use it. So it's used properly, because if it's used properly, you would never suspect technology. When it's being used gratuitously, people will be like, oh, well, that was, some trick thing like that. And then the other thing too is people, when they watch something like that, whether it was technology or not technology, if they say, oh, that was a computer aided thing or, whatever it is, well, it might as well be, because that's, if they perceive it to be that, then you're screwed anyway. It doesn't matter if you didn't do it that way.
Yeah, technology has like a tug and pull relationship. It's similar to CGIs in movies. A lot of critics hate it, but we know that it makes the movie better. Yeah, you could also disguise some of the inadequacies of the actors' abilities. Same goes for, I have a background in the nightclub industry. Yeah, some of the at Omni, it's a world-class nightclub. We have some of the best DJs, Tiesto, Calvin, all that. but the attraction is actually the production. It's this giant chandelier that comes down in this like all 360, all inclusive show. So you basically aren't even paying attention to the DJ the entire time. You're just paying attention to this show. And so to leverage technology, sometimes it actually takes away from the person or the curator that you're there to see.
Yeah. So I've got questions for you. Can I interview you for?
Hey, this is a conversation open.
So I have a phobia that I've never gone to a club. I can't even go to like a bar that has a band or something. Like I freak out. Yeah. I'm so.
Maybe that's why you do so well on stage by yourself.
Yeah, no, there's a barrier for sure. Absolutely. And, I'm kind of in control of the situation. But so I don't understand the appeal of nightclubs, and I want you to help me with this. But also, with all these DJs, are the DJs, are they? You can say I can't answer that question. No, but are they performing live, or could anybody just be doing what they're doing? So it's just almost like a meet and greet.
So we'll dissect that first. Yeah. The act of DJing is very simple. It's you have like 2 to 3 mixers up there, and so you're just mixing the songs. Some of the DJs actually run with the same show for years, and some of them tend to mix it up a little bit more. Being there for 6 years, I could tell you there's a handful of DJs that had almost the same show for 3-4 years. But it's the behind the scenes of them actually creating the songs and producing it and coming up with it that is the hard part with it. And then they just take that music and then go and create a show. So the actual show and getting paid for it's the easy part. It's more of the back end thing.
Right.
As far as I guess you'd call them the clubbers, there's 2 different components to it. You have the VIP table service, and then you have the GA section. The VIP table service, that's where I worked out. I was a busser, so I was hands-on up front with all of the guests. It is a little bit of an ego flaunt for some of the guys. I mean, coming in and paying for bottle service that's 20x markup is a little crazy, in my opinion, but it attracts women that they want. So it sounds so cliche, but it really does attract the women. They call them the bottle rats, where they go and when a guy, I say guy because 95% of table service is the head of the table is generally a man. When they buy certain bottles or exclusive packages that are really expensive, they bring lights to the table and it like shows all the attention on you. And it's like, look at me. And then the whole club's looking at you and the girls end up going over there. It's super funny. It's so primal how it works.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
And then the GA, the general admission, or people who go on the guest list that surround the table service and are on the dance floor. Those people are generally there for the experience. They're generally there because they like the DJ or they just want to kind of like hang out and dance. When you're buying table service, it's more about the real estate in the club than it is the actual bottle service, because you get to be closer and you get to have your own area, because some of these nights it's like herding cattle around the club, where it's very tightly compact, like very. Sometimes you hear some cries for help.
Really?
Yeah. Some people freak out when you're body to body like this, and you're kind of stuck, and you're kind of like in a tight area for a few minutes. Yeah. It gets frightening for some people. The experience, it's generally a younger crowd, and the table service is generally a little bit older crowd. So it's the allure of, I think sex is generally the primary motivator for the table service. And then for the GA, it's more of the experience and going out with your friends. It's also much cheaper to go on the GA.
Right. I would imagine. So, okay. So that kind of answers my, like having a DJ there.
They're the attraction.
It's no different than you just putting on Spotify, and I shouldn't say it's no different because there's mixing from one song to the other. But
the mixing is very simple.
Yeah, but it isn't. They're not. It isn't like you're going to a concert and they're actually playing an instrument.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there's some people like Steve Aoki. He does more of like a show where he's literally just putting the DJ on play, and he's going up and he's running around and throwing cakes and all these like different carbon dioxide tanks and throwing shirts and stuff like that.
Okay.
Some people like Calvin Harris just literally come in, tune out, get on the mic every once in a while and just plays his music. And it's like I said, it's just the allure of the DJ because they really pack him in there. Calvin's always like the number one seller because he's the most popular DJ. Yeah. But the thing with Calvin Harris is he produces his own music, so he makes the beats. He also sings over it as well and DJs. So and then you have other DJs who have like different back end metrics to it.
Right. No, I get the the music that they put out and the work and the creativity in doing that, but I just when you're
the
at
actual
a club,
act is the actual act is
it's
very
like going
minimal.
to a concert and they're lip syncing.
Because you couldn't literally just press play and let it just run. They just plug in the USB to it and mix, but I think it's more just hearing their songs because now there's contracts where certain DJs can only play certain songs at certain nightclubs.
Oh, really?
So it's like hearing that song live with that person in the room. It's like the energy. I'm sure you could feel the same way with performing.
No, this has been very helpful to me. I don't know if your listeners care, but
a lot of my listeners, once Vegas opens back up, is about to go hamtaro back out into the scene. I have a lot of friends. I used to be a big club rat when I was at UNLV and a little bit after. Yeah. And I've had a lot of people text me like, we're going to the club every day this summer. People are pent up, man. Yeah. So I'm sure you'll see a huge attraction as well. I mean, you probably have like a solid community around you as well. But being downtown and being in that area where a lot of the millennials just I resonate with a lot more than the Strip is it's going to be a giant impact for your show.
I hope so.
What is your community like? Do you have a solid community support group that follows you around, or have you been more of a nomad?
Well, I mean, there is a magic community, but magicians are, we support each other, but there's also. How do I say this diplomatically?
Is it competitive?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of competition with it because people are scraping for gigs, kind of thing. So it's like on one hand they're happy that someone got a particular gig, but on the other hand they're like, oh, why couldn't I have gotten that? And I should have gotten that or something like that. So, but by and large, I mean the group of people that I tend to hang out with and be around, I think we're all genuinely happy for each other for whatever's going on, because I'm also with people that are pretty darn good and secure with what they do, so
I'd say it's similar. I follow stand-up comedy a lot, and the comedians are generally happy for each other and they're very encouraging. So I was curious if the magic community was similar. I know it could probably be more of a zero-sum game because there's less magic performance spots than there is comedian stand-up spots.
Yeah. No, I used to tour manage a lot of comedians, so I know the stand-up comedy world decent. And it is very similar in that regard but there's one big difference. So comics are going to they'll sit in the back of the room and they'll help each other out. Like after a set, they're like, hey, if you add this tag to that joke, I think it'd be great. And that's all wonderful. But comedians, for the most part, respect each other's material. Like that's their material. So obviously there is some stealing going on, but it's not that much. In the magic world, there's not just much more stealing going on, but like I've developed some tricks and I sell them, so people actually can use them. So that the material is shared much more. And I think because of that, people think that they can take material that may not be for sale or the magician doesn't want, spread out. So and there tend to be arguments. So I'm working on a new ending for my show here in Totally Mental, downtown Las Vegas, at Notoriety.
Open now.
Open now. Tickets at. So I'm working on a new ending for it, and I've talked to a few people about it, and they said, each person said, you should talk to so-and-so because I think they did something similar. So, and I've had those conversations, and both of them were like, no, it's not even, not only were they, it's not even close, but then they gave me some ideas on how to even make what I was trying to do a little bit better. But that's among, these are professional people that I'm talking with, and kind of the conversations on that level are nice and good. But then there's the whole other,
the back end
community of folks that, they think that just because they saw it and the person did it, whether it's on TV or anything, that they can just take it. And that's a little bit of trouble.
So similar to like the DJ world, there's ghost producers where people make beats and then sell it. Is that a similar analogy to the magician world, where
Absolutely.
there's people who just live in the dark realm and they just sell tricks to people?
And never perform. Yeah. Yep. There are several folks out there that are just brilliant inventors, but they're not performers, and they're content with that. They understand it, and that's how they make their living.
Interesting. This ghost producer serves many different performance realms. That's I never even thought of that.
Yeah, you have ghost writers and
So do you, because you're a performer, do you obviously enjoy performing more than just hiding in the back end? Like, you were a manager for a long time.
Yeah.
Were you just encouraged, or I guess kind of allured with the magicness and the glamour of being on stage and the energy?
Oh, there's definitely an ego component. I mean, you can't. I mean, anybody that denies it is an asshole, because they're denying the truth, and you can see right through it. But when I was tour managing, and because I would do anything and everything to make sure that show and that artist, the show was great and the artist was comfortable and had everything, I would go crazy making things happen. I don't know if you know Ina Garten, the barefoot Contessa.
Not familiar.
Oh, okay. Well, if
sounds like a crazy name, honestly.
She's so lovely. But she's the #1 published cookbooks for Random House. I mean, she's huge, and anybody that's into cooking would be like, oh my God, Ina, or whatever. But I was her tour manager, and she still talks about the day that we went to do a show, and I noticed that the chair was a little high for her, and I got an Uber, and I took the chair, and I went to a hardware store, and I had them cut the legs down, just 2 inches, just to make it right, but I knew that would make her more comfortable during the thing. She wasn't demanding this, she didn't even know about it until, afterwards. And then she was just like, oh my gosh, you did that? And I was like, yeah, of course. So I would just think in my head, I'm like, I'm doing all these things for all these people to make sure I was like, I need to be doing it for me to make my show good. So that's, I shifted that, and I definitely enjoy performing much more than I did tour managing, but I learned so much from tour managing, and I don't regret those experiences at all.
Yeah, it looks like you were able to pick out some of the small details where you would oftentimes overlook when you're performing on stage, because you have to divert your attention to this massive crowd in front of you and kind of just culminate their energy.
Yeah, and more than that too is I understand the crew really well. So when I don't think I make requests that are unreasonable or
no green Skittles.
Well, the green M&Ms is actually. Do you know the story behind that?
No, people reference it all the time. Even at the nightclub, people would reference it all the time.
So it's actually quite brilliant. Before a show, and as a tour manager, I have a rider for the artist, and we send it over to the venue that is hosting the show, and we'll do an advance call to make sure everything is going well, and they have everything that they need, because some people there are little things in there that are really important in particular. So I'll go over certain stuff like that. So the green M&Ms was, they put that in there because it's small and it could easily get glossed over. So it was their way of feeling comfortable when they got to a venue. So if they got to the venue and the green M&Ms were there, they're like, okay, they read this writer. I know everything is going to be okay from sound and light, like everything else. So it was just kind of like a confidence check. It wasn't like they're trying to be jerks about only green M&Ms because that's all I like. It was to test them to see if they read through the writer and were paying attention to it and doing it. So
it's like a signifier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and there are things with different people that I worked with. I knew that there were one or two things that if I made sure happened, that they would be comfortable, and it would be their kind of green M&Ms. They're comfortable with everything. They know that we're on point today, and I can relax and just worry about the show.
Wow. So, what do you look for now that you're a performer? What do you look for in evaluating a tour manager? Are there certain skills or mindsets or like prerequisites that you look for?
Yeah, I think I have a person helping me out right now, and she's been a friend for a long time, and she's got more Vegas stage hours than I'll ever get. She was a performer in town, a magic act, a part of a duo magic act, and she's incredibly creative and fantastic performer. But the quality that she has that I like and would look for is that she treats this job as if it's her own. And I think that's the key to it. If anybody goes in and it's like, oh, I'm just going to get a paycheck and, I did my job and that's there or whatever. Now you want someone that wants as if they feel like it's going to be them up on stage dealing with whatever is coming their way. I think that's the key to it.
Yeah. Tour managers. I've had a few different tour managers come through here, and it seems like their tour manager and whoever they're representing are almost like best friends. It's almost like your parent that's on the road with you.
Yeah, well, it's also because when you find one that you like and is good, then you do become friends with, and that's that's definitely what goes on. So I'll share a story.
Yes, story time.
I know this person will never hear this thing, but so I was working with Ina Garten and Mel Brooks, tour manager for both of them, and Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. So those three, among others, but I had one particular producer that was for those three shows. And this producer would come out to the Ina Garten shows and the Mel Brooks shows because they were fun to come out to. He would rarely come out to the Caesar Milan shows, and quite honestly, Caesar didn't care for him being around, kind of thing. So it didn't matter. But we were at a Mel Brooks show, and things were great. Everything, things were running wonderful. It was actually Carl Reiner's birthday, and we were in LA. The show was in Thousand Oaks, and Carl Reiner came out to the show, and we wished him a happy birthday from the state, whatever, the whole audience saying happy birthday to him. I mean, it was a fun night, really fun night. And after like a little chat with Mel, the producer and I were in another room, and he mentioned something about, and I won't say specifically, but he mentioned something about Ina Garten and some upcoming things. And I said, oh yeah, I know. She told me that. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, she told me that and just asked me to, keep it quiet, kind of thing. The next day he fired me from Mel Brooks and Ina Garten, not Caesar Milan, because Caesar Milan, he wouldn't go to those shows, but he said, I didn't know how to handle an artist is what he said. Because he was basically jealous that they were better friends with me than they were with him, and I tried to describe to him that it's a completely different relationship. As a tour manager, it isn't about just as a producer would be like, very like I do the job and, this is it. And it's very professional and all that. And that's the way he was. And it was fine. But I'm on the road with them and I'm, driving with them and this and that. And we talk about so many things that are just not related to show business at all. And we establish a relationship. Since then, I mean, I was really upset about it. I was really upset. But since then, Mel has hired me. Like when he's been in town here at the Wynn, he's hired me separately to just come. And like when I show up, he'd be like, give me a big hug and a kiss. And he's like, "How are you, Vinny? You're the best." And, so I felt good about that. And then since then with Ina, I was vacationing with my family in Long Island. People actually do vacation in Long Island, but there's a beach. And it wasn't too far from her house and her studio. And she invited me over to take a tour of the studio or whatever. And she was like, "Yeah, we growl whenever there's another show that you're not doing it," and stuff like that. So I knew it was this guy's jealousy, of that relationship, and my relationship with them was good and it worked. So
yeah, we forget about those social power dynamics that happen behind the scenes. That's what plagues a lot of relationships, a lot of businesses and tour managers. So that's cool. Yeah. But in terms of now that you are on stage, tell me about your new show.
That's boring. Let's get back to this other thing.
We'll circle back. We got plenty of time.
Yeah, no. So the new show is, we talked about technology and this show, because of the COVID restrictions, I've had to incorporate technology as far as like cameras and stuff, things of that nature into the show. But I try. It's a hybrid. Like when I was working on the cruise ship, I had two shows. It was Inconceivable, which was my comedy magic show, and then I had Totally Mental, which was my comedy mentalism show, which is different than this version of it. And then when COVID hit, I came up with Over the Air Magic, which is an online magic show and, completely different kind of stuff. Magic happens in the people's homes and all of that. So this, even though I'm calling it Totally Mental and it's a comedy mentalism show, I've taken pieces from all three shows that I had developed to make it work in this environment, because I can't have any volunteers up on stage, and I still want to include the audience, not just, and I don't want them looking at a camera the entire time. So I have things that actually happen in their seats, while they're there. So it's a whole mixture of stuff. And I focused on the mentalism side. I think that it lent itself much better to kind of this situation. So
what's the difference between the mentalism and magic?
So like a magic trick would be, I make something appear or disappear, or, I restore something or something like that. And mentalism would be all really about prediction, kind of like I knew this, or, I got you to choose that, mental manipulation, or
like your Penn and Teller thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Both of my Penn and Teller pieces were essentially mentalism.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I bring them up. They're referenced in the show. I have a couple segments on those pieces, and I make new magic tricks out of those segments. So it's I tell like a funny story, and I do a trick related to it.
So it sounds like this is more of a compilation of your entire career, because you said this is your first like real residency in a city. Do you feel there's like some sort of do you feel there's more importance to just land this show and hit a home run with it?
Well, I think anytime you're going to do something in this town, you have to. I was talking to a friend of mine where I was like, this new ending that I want to do is very much downtown Las Vegas. Kind of it fits that genre. And I was like, well, if I do that, does that am I going to just be like labeled and put in this box? And he was like, you're overthinking it. And he goes, what matters in this town is whether or not you have a good show or not, and whether or not you can sell tickets. If you can do both of those, then it doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Do they put it on the performer to fill the venue as well?
Well, it all depends on what show and who's producing, et cetera. So I'm producing my own show. So it is it is on me. I mean, the venue, we do something. First of all, notoriety has been fantastic. I mean, they've been so great to work with, and they have a bunch of stuff going on there that, beyond, like I'm doing a magic show or mentalism show. Before me, David Goldrake, who had a magic show at the Tropicana, is doing an illusion show in the space that I'm in, and then there's an adjacent theater within in the space where they have comedy shows. Clint Holmes is doing a music show there, and they've had a whole Ruby just recently did a music event there. So I mean, they have all stuff going on. It's great. It's really great. So we'll do some promoting together, but it is pretty much on me to
market it.
Yeah, to market and promote it. Yeah.
Wow, that's
it's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot to put everything together.
And guess what? That's part of why I'm here today.
It's the best way to touch out to the community, because that's a very community-driven area, is downtown. Mm-hmm. So is the ultimate goal to get onto the Strip? What is like the dream spot for magician?
For some people, that is for sure. I mean, Penn and Teller have been in this town longer than any other headlining act, and they're technically not on the Strip. The Rio is technically not on the Strip. So for me, I think it could go a couple different ways. I love downtown. I really love downtown, and I would be more than content if this show, really grows roots here and becomes a staple of downtown, and I would have no reason to or desire to leave, there. But you never know what opportunities come and all of that. I mean, at the moment, I'm focused on making sure that this show works, where I'm at. So.
What goes into your creative process when you're sitting at home trying to think of different ideas and constructs? Yeah,
so this has been a COVID thing, but I walk in the morning at a park for a minimum of 7 miles in the morning, and that is generally I'm reviewing what I have to do in the day, and I mean, it's my mental health break. It's also because I'm not going to a gym, at these times, it at least lets me burn some calories. And that's definitely where a lot of the creative ideas come during that time, when my brain is a little clear of stuff. Because then once I get back to the house and it's, emails and other stuff, that just start to detract from it. So
how long would you say it takes to put an act together? I know some comedians say they work years on just a small 45-minute stand-up. Would you say it's similar for magician yourself?
It's all variable. I mean, there are some things. I mean, there's stuff that I've developed, that really took several years before I felt it was like, oh, okay, that's good. And you're constantly tweaking and trying to make things better. This particular show has been stressful because there's 30% of it I would say is absolutely brand new material because of the situation that I'm in. So the preview night was the first night I was doing I did 30% of it. It was the first time I ever was able to do it in front of a live audience. You practice it, but you just don't know the timing and the rhythm of it, without actually doing it. And then another 50% of the show was material that I had done, but not in this way. I had to modify it. So that required me thinking about it as I was doing it. And then, just a small percentage of it was stuff that I've done and will do the same way, in it. So the preview night was challenging. Like, to me, I wanted to get through it where there were no technical issues and all the magic worked. And I knew I wasn't performing as much as I was demonstrating what I put together. And now I feel really good about it. Like I'm able to connect with the audience and and have those moments. So it's
where do magicians go to practice their material? Like, to use the comedy example again, comedians just go to local stand-ups and then they can practice it. Is there something like that similar in the magic world?
So a lot of magicians will go to an open mic like a comedian and just do the magic routine. So, it's hard when you're starting out because all your stuff is going to be kind of new. And so you need places that you can be bad and perform. And when younger folks ask me, about that, I say, just volunteer and do shows at, VA hospitals or, retirement communities, stuff like that. I mean, they'd be happy to have entertainment. There'll be a supportive crowd, which you need in that situation, and you can just figure out how to do some of this stuff. And then as you get better and have shows and develop it, like the professionals today will work out they'll know pretty well before they put something on stage how it's going to play out, but not like maybe 80% there. And then that other 20%, they need that stage time in order to figure it out. So what they generally do is, okay, let's just say I have an hour. I have a show that I do that's an hour. Well, after, like 30 minutes in, I'll put this routine in. And so I have, solid 30 minutes that I know works in the beginning. And then I have this 10-minute spot, and then it follows by another 20 minutes or whatever of solid material. So even if something does go horribly wrong or they don't get the timing right or something like that, it's lost in that umbrella of the show.
So there are parts of the act where it's just more of a mental model and you just continually practice that in your mind until you actually get on stage.
Yeah.
Because there's more... there's a more limited space to practice these kind of things.
Yeah. When I was, for this show, I had been writing, not just the script, but all the cues and all that. I have this big binder, and as I'm writing it, I'm like, wow, I am brilliant. Like this is going to win awards. Like people are just going to go and be like, this was the greatest thing ever or whatever. And then the first day that I did a rehearsal, without an audience, just rehearsal, whatever. I was like, this is the biggest piece of crap ever. It's so interesting how things play out in your mind and versus how when you have to audibly say it and go through it, it's just completely different. And then you're usually, at least I am, I think, highly critical of everything that comes out. So.
When I first started the podcast and recorded myself just talking to Mike, I was like, wow, I really sound like that. Like
you don't.
Who let me walk around for 28 years
right.
with that voice?
Yeah, no, you never sound, you never sound like you do. And on camera, you never look like you really do.
Yeah. So. It generally just comes down to, you have to accept feeling vulnerable and know that you will learn. And people tend to applaud you for it. There's forget the specific name for it. But the crowd is generally encouraging you to be your best, right? They paid to be there, so they don't want you to be bad. So that's the stage fright is just like a common thing. It's just like a common barrier that we enact within ourselves to like, it's kind of like the fight or flight ideal, even though everyone wants you to be your best when you're up there.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And, that's one of the things that you kind of just, if you're nervous about something before you go out, that you kind of just have to tell yourself, like, hey, everyone's on the same team here. We all want, so just go and give it a good effort, and they'll be somewhat forgiving. It's when someone is arrogant about it and bad, that's when the audience turns. So
mistakes are okay. Mistakes are sometimes encouraged, in my opinion. That's why I don't edit the podcast. Some people like it because it kind of presents that you are human, and that you're not this supernatural, egotistical force that you want to portray yourself as.
And that's I say, people ask, like, what's your character? And I don't really have, I'm not that great. That even is too complimentary to myself. I am a terrible actor. Okay. Like it's not even that I'm not that great at it. I'm a horrible actor. So to say that I have a character would be assuming that I have some sort of acting skill, and I do not. So I say, what is my stage persona, which is, different than a full-on character kind of thing. And it's an amplified version of myself. But the points that I try to amplify is I say that I'm a serious magician who doesn't take himself seriously. So I do the magic, and the stuff that I do is hopefully is going to fool the crap out of you. Like I've worked on it and developed it, so it should be really freaking strong. And I think I have a decent track record of doing that. But at no point am I presenting these things as if I think I am wonderful because I can do them. It's like, oh, okay. But that also allows, like you were saying about making you said making a mistake on the podcast and just let it go. Yeah, I want them to see vulnerability within myself, and honestly, that allows me to get away with other stuff because they think, oh, he's not really doing something. So I may be presenting myself in a very vulnerable way, but deep down I'm conniving the crap out of you, so.
And some of the mistakes that we are aware of that we make, the audience isn't aware of at all, because it's such a small nuanced thing that happened that the audience just completely goes over the audience's head.
My mom went out on my parents and actually my aunts and uncles, they all went on a cruise when I was performing on the cruise lines. And one of the comments that my mom said to me was, she's seen me since I was just started when I was 12, but she has seen every iteration of my show from 14 on, kind of thing. And she would always tell me that I know when you make a mistake because I see it in your face and I see how you're, but the audience doesn't know. So don't worry about it. And she finally said to me when I was on the cruise, she said, wow, it was flawless. Like you didn't make any mistakes. I was like, no, Mom, I made these. She goes, wow, you're so much better at hiding, like not letting it frazzle you or get you, alter your expression, to indicate, if not to them, to her that you screwed up.
Yeah, we have to make this mental shift. I personally watch every podcast episode because I have to edit. But when I'm watching myself speak, I don't look at it as me. I look at it as just like another person. Mm-hmm. And then I critique it that way. And it's just like, oh, Jake made this mistake. But if you take kind of the emotion away from it, then it makes it easier to critique yourself and without diminishing your self-esteem. Do you watch your performances afterwards?
Yeah, I record all my shows. And do I watch them all? No. But sometimes, like if there was something, I need to get better at that and just reviewing each and every one. Right now it's been a little hectic. When I was on the cruise ship, I did because I only did one show a week, and I actually had one of the actors in the production show on the ship. She was she's this amazing actress out of South Africa, and she worked soap operas and stuff like that. She was just brilliant, and she would watch all my shows. And then the next day we'd get like lunch and we'd review it. And she didn't care about the magic at all. I mean, she was just, how did it feel? What were the moments? What were, I remember we had a half-hour conversation one time on 2 sentences and where I should pause in the beginning of the show. I mean, just really little details like that were fantastic. So I still keep in touch with her, and I owe her a video of this most recent show, and then we'll, through video chat, we'll go over it and do that, because I don't know how you feel when you're editing your own stuff. Like I would imagine, I think that's really difficult. I mean, really, really difficult. It's so much better having a different person look at it, because you get wrapped up in, you live through it and you know what's going through your head at a particular time or something, so you can miss something or or change something that doesn't need to be changed, kind of thing.
I really try to take an analytical approach. I watch it just because I'm editing it. I'm not editing the conversation, but I'm on Adobe piecing the cameras and paneling back and forth. But listening to it again, because when you're hosting a podcast, sometimes you have to like kind of prep for the next question, or are we going to move this way? Yeah. So sometimes I overlook even things that you say during the conversation. Sure. And then I'm watching and I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot that even happened. And then
I find that I can't do two things at one time, as far as like if I was doing that, but I find women have this unbelievable ability to actually do that. I hate doing gender things, but I think women are wired way better than us,
I've actually gone on mic multiple times and said that I actually prefer talking to women on the podcast. And
I'm sorry.
Well, depends what your pronouns.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not PC, but I'm rolling with it. Vegas is just like, it's a very entrepreneurial driven town. Yeah. And women as guests on podcasts is a very underserved market. So anytime there's an opportunity to interview a woman that's an entrepreneur, I jump on it completely, because the conversations are generally a little bit more deeper. They go more, I'd say they go like 5 or 6 levels into one topic. I think because they have a little bit more emotional intelligence, so they can balance those conversations. And let's be honest, if you've ever had a significant other, she'll hold on to something for years before it comes back up. Yeah. You're like, wow, you held on to that for 2 years before you just brought that up. You're waiting for, so they're a little bit more tactical in their conversational approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas men, we just want to kind of shout from the mountains what we've done and what we're about to do. It's a little bit more of like an enunciation.
Yeah, the woman that's helping me out with my shows, who's the friend and former performer, etc. She gets so mad at me. I mean, so mad at me, because I will start a sentence and then I won't even finish it because mentally I'm on to something else or whatever. And she like smacks me and is like, finish your thought, please finish your thought. So the other day we were in the car together and I called my younger sister up, because she gets so frustrated with me with that as well. And I put her on the phone to talk so they could commiserate about that, because I wanted her to know that she's not alone and that it isn't that I don't want to finish my thought. I'm super dyslexic, and this is like when I was younger, I was in remedial writing because I never had complete sentences on the paper, and they determined that my thought was there, but I couldn't write as fast as I was thinking. So I would be 2 sentences ahead and then jumping around as I write, so that sounds like a great excuse, and I'm going with it. So.
Well, it seems like that line of thinking would translate really well to being on stage, because you can be ahead in your mind while your body's enacting and doing these certain things, but you still have to prep yourself for where you're moving on to next.
Yeah, but it is really clear when I'm lost, and people think it's a dramatic pause, and I'm like, no, I'm just clueless right now.
I've noticed there's a few various forms of dyslexia. Is yours where the word looks jumbled as well when you're reading? No, it's just your mind is oftentimes further ahead than your actions are.
Yeah, I've never read a book. I wrote a book, but I've never read a book. I've listened to books, but I can't, like, even if there's subtitles or in a movie, if they cut to something that you have to read, I cannot read it fast enough, because I have to look at each word individually and compute it. And then after I get done with the sentence, I have to reread it now that I know all the words that are in the sentence to comprehend it. So I read super, super slow, and it's really frustrating. And I get, if I try to, when I'm reading after just a few minutes of it, I'm toast. I'm spent. But I can listen to a podcast. I can listen to a book. Books on tape I love. I can listen to them fine. I can listen to them speed it up. It's all good.
So for the I guess the deficit in reading, does it make up for it in writing? Since you said you published a book, what was the inspiration behind the book?
So it's actually stories from tour managing, and it's, how did these people achieve what they achieved? And I brought a copy of it. I'll give you a copy of the book.
I love reading.
It's called Exposed and Fearless, and it's on Amazon, and I sell it after my show. The best way is to go to my show in Vegas.
Boom.
And then
we're going, guys. We're going.
And then you can get a hard copy of the book cheaper than you can get it on Amazon. And so it's a bunch of. It started out as a bunch of short stories of folks that are either famous or famous within the magic world or whatever. But I expose you to a side of them that you would not see because I know them personally and I've worked with them. And it's how did they achieve what they achieved? And then how did fear play a role in that? And fear played a role in all of them, but in different ways. And I explore that. And that was the first edition. And then the second edition and subsequent editions after, I'm on third edition, focused more, like I finished the book out with how have I applied what I learned from these folks into my own life. So now the book is about my journey going forward, having learned what I've learned from these folks, and it'll always be incomplete. I'm always constantly working on it. So
you're salt and peppering a little of these remnants throughout this entire conversation.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. That's awesome. I actually had the book written down, so I'm glad we did get into that.
Yeah.
But I know we've been going on for a little while, and I've enjoyed your company. But before we get out of here, I always ask one question to everybody. It's the same one on the way out, and the question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Oh man. Las Vegas really has meant everything to me. I moved out here 7 years ago from upstate New York, and I have super close family, but I say my only regret is not moving here sooner because it has given me a career, a life that I've always wanted.
What was the original idea for moving out here?
The original idea was I was traveling so much from consulting to tour managing, and I'd only be home for like a few days out of a month, literally a few days out of a month. And all of my siblings and my parents, we all lived like super close in upstate New York. But my brother him and his family moved to Philadelphia area. That's where his wife is from. And my one sister moved, like 20 minutes away, but it wasn't like super close. And then my parents were spending more time in Florida. So when I'd be home, it wasn't like I could we'd always be over for dinner or something like that. So the few days that I was home, I was just like in the middle of the woods, like, okay, I guess I'm home, kind of thing. So a friend of mine who moved out here, I would tour manage, Brad Sherwood, Colin Mockery and Brad Sherwood from Whose Line Is It Anyway? He moved out to Vegas from Los Angeles, and he was like, it's fantastic. He's like, it's great. You're just going over all the lovely things about it. So I was like, yeah, I know a lot of magicians in Vegas too. I'm friends with a lot of them. That'll be great. And then not just the friends that I had before I got here, but all the friends that I've connected with since I've been here. I'm not the unicorn born and bred in Las Vegas, but I love this town. I love this community, and I'm so happy to be a part of it, and I'm not going anywhere.
It's literally the land of opportunity. Yeah. And we're in this.
And I don't drink. I don't gamble. I've never been to a club. Like I don't do any of that. I've never even tried marijuana. Like, I have it at my house in case a guest comes over and wants some, but I've never even tried it once in my life. But it's, so like none of those things have any appeal to me, but this town I just love dearly.
You're just embracing the superior hospitality and customer service, right? To your guests, that's the entire ethos of the city is take care of those who come down and offer whatever and as many services as you can in a specific way.
Yeah.
I appreciate you for coming on. Where do I send all of the listeners or people who are watching on YouTube to learn more about you or anything you'd like to mention?
Yeah, well, let's do a couple things here, Jake.
Let's do it.
First of all, my social media, which I'm horrible at, is at Vinny Grosso, VINNYGROSSO. I'm sure you'll put it up or whatever.
Yeah, it'll all be in the show notes at the bottom.
Yeah. but I said I'm horrible at that. But I imagine the majority of your listeners are Vegas locals, and if they mention this podcast, if they come to the show, they can get tickets in advance if they want to make sure that they have tickets, because it is limited right now. The tickets are at totallymental.info/tix, TIX. But if they want to just come to the door and mention this podcast, instead of a $35 ticket, they'll get a $19 ticket.
What a freaking deal. 45% off. Mention the guest list.
Yes.
Podcast at the front
Mm-hmm.
to the, what is that? The box office peeps?
Well, it's the guy at the door.
Okay.
And he'll take care of your folks.
Amazing. You guys listen to that. $20. I know everyone is itching to go out. So Vinny's open, right?
Yeah.
When are you performing? What days?
Friday, Saturday at 9 p.m. and Sunday at 5 p.m. And it's 21 and over because of the bar that's there. We're trying to work on getting our venue open to younger folks, but it's essentially, I guess I say I don't go to nightclubs. It's not a DJ type nightclub, but it is technically a club. So
hey, it's fit and suitable for these pandemic times.
Yeah.
Vinny, thank you for coming on. This was a very magical 100 episodes. So
thanks for having me, and I'm super glad I was part of the magical episode.
Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you at Vinny's show.